Okay, we're live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the August 5th meeting of the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Becca, do you have the statement from the governor?
I do. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen only, visit the YouTube link posted on the agenda on the town's website.
Thank you. I'm just trying to, my internet is just terrible. Just trying to pull up the agenda. Becca, do you have the agenda up?
Yeah, so the first item is approval of the July 1st, 2021 meeting minutes that I
July
sent out.
1st.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, the first item on the agenda, let's just go around and just a roll call so that we're sure everybody can be heard and be heard. Deidre Riding,
Present.
Chica Holland,
Present.
Mary Leach,
Present.
Becca Meekins,
Present.
and I'm Tim Kalen. Yeah, so the first item on the agenda is the approval of the July 1st meeting minutes. Did anybody have any comments or additions to those minutes? No? All right, so just a roll call vote. Deidre Riding,
A motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
and a roll call vote. Deidre Riding,
Aye.
Chica Holland,
Aye.
Mary Leach,
Aye.
Becca Meekins,
Aye.
and I am not going to vote because I wasn't at that meeting. So that takes care of that. So tonight, our guest this evening is Town Administrator John Cordair. As everybody knows, I think everybody has had a chance to chat with John before we got started. So John's been Town Administrator for how long, John?
13 years.
13 years.
I've worked for the town for 19 years. I've been a town administrator for 13, and I've lived here for 24 years.
So doesn't quite qualify as a townie, but
I'm still a blow-in, though, according to the if you're keeping score.
yeah. So John, thanks for taking the time. I know that we've touched base a couple times about everything that's going on with COVID and the Delta variant. So I know there's a lot going on with the town and working with the health agent in the schools and everything. So just thanks for taking the time to meet with us tonight. It's like I said, it's very much appreciated.
Pleasure.
And as you know, we've met with a number of different departments, police, fire, and school, and a few of the committees. And what our goal is when we meet with the various departments and committees is just to get a overview of the diversity inclusion goals of the department, and learn how this committee can be a resource to help the departments implement any diversity and inclusion agenda items they may have now or in the future. So that's been the scope of the conversations that we've had with everybody. Did anybody have any questions before we get going for John, before we get started? Or I shouldn't say before we get started. Off the top?
John, could you tell us a little bit more about your role and kind of the scope of what you do and like who you work with closely in the town?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. It's funny. I have since I've been in this town, I've always had this standing policy that I'll meet with any group, anytime, anywhere to talk about anything related to the town. We were chatting, a few minutes ago about, it's a great community, and I'm here by choice. I chose this as my home and a place to raise my family before I ever, took a job here. And so I go out and I meet with a lot of groups around over the years, from Boy Scouts. I love talking to students and schools and civic organizations. But when I talk to especially to the younger groups, the best analogy I can draw up of what I do is it's like being a coach, and it's really, I see my job as trying to. I'm getting a sign here that says my internet connection is unstable. Am I choppy? Can everybody still hear me? All right.
Still hear you, yeah.
All right. So, well, let me back up. So, if you think about, if you step back, my job is, and our form of government is the corporate form of government superimposed on municipalities. So basically, the Board of Selectmen are the Board of Directors, and they hire the CEO to manage the day-to-day operations. So when I talk to, but that doesn't really relate well when I talk to Boy Scouts and on Government Day, and I go into schools. But really, it's more of a coaching and a coordination. We're trying to get the best out of all the pieces of the team, and my job is to make sure that that coordination takes place, and that I'm implementing the policy decisions of the board to the best of our abilities. But it's really about trying to get the organization, the pieces, to function well together. And you do that through coaching and motivation, and sometimes discipline, which is always, kind of a last choice. But then that's the inward facing, and then the outward is engaging, the community and the civic groups. And we're an organization that is really run at the policy level by volunteers such as yourself. So it's kind of an up and down the ladder, and it's trying to bring all those pieces together and get folks to work together over things that they might not always agree on. So it's a lot of conflict resolution, and I think the joke is, we spend as managers, we spend a lot of time herding cats. You got people wandering off in different directions, and you're trying to get, from a policy standpoint, and it culminates with town meeting, to get everybody moving the same direction. And you do that with good process and good information. So one of the things I pride myself on is, as I said, I've been the administrator for 13 years. We've had consistent, unanimous support for pretty much every major initiative that we've done in terms of budgets and capital projects. And the only way to do that is just a very strong commitment to a good process and good information, despite, some of our, at the federal level, the facts matter, and we need to make sure that we're making decisions on good information. And Tim's a data guy. He knows I'm a data guy as well. And so, that's the basis upon which you agree on the information. And then we try to figure out where it is we want to go as a community. I don't know if that answers your question. It's a tough, when people ask me, what do you do for a living? The title is easy. Explaining how it actually works in practice is a little bit more complicated. So.
Oh, thank you. That was really helpful. And I really appreciate, I know we all appreciate you coming today.
I'm happy to be here. So.
Thanks, John. Anybody else have any initial questions? No. So when in our conversations with the other departments, one of the themes that has come up is just the challenges that everybody's having around hiring and recruiting.
Yeah.
And I know, from the position that you have within the organization is that you're involved in a lot of the hiring and recruiting, not only at town hall, but also assisting with other departments. Are you seeing are you having the same challenges around hiring and recruiting as far as interest in positions and getting qualified people to apply for jobs and so forth?
Yeah, I think as an industry as a whole, I mean, the private sector is having, if you talk to the folks in the Chamber of Commerce, they'll tell you the number one complaint or issue of their membership is difficulty in recruiting and retaining, good people. I have a fly buzzing around in here. I have a Mike Pence moment here. I hope that's the only, no. Yeah. So it's sort of across the board, but I do think that specifically municipal positions and some positions within the town have become very, very difficult to recruit for. I know you spoke with police and fire. When I started in this business, 25 years ago, we'd advertise a police position. I'd have 200 applicants. Now we're lucky to get a dozen people, and of those trying to get down to qualified people that we want to become a part of our organization, it gets very, very tight. But there are a lot of positions that there just doesn't seem to be a pipeline of folks coming in and wanting to get into this business. And especially on the finance end, town planners, right now, health agents are almost impossible to find. We lucked out. We've got a Cracker Jack and Kristen Black, and we're thrilled to have her. But just the applicant pool isn't there. The quality of candidates don't seem to be there. And because the feed coming in to people wanting to work in municipalities, for whatever reason, has shrunk. What we find is that municipalities are just poaching from each other. And unfortunately, as a small town with a great reputation of hiring good people, the larger towns, kind of poach off our folks. And we can't compete salary wise, and we can't compete in terms of promotional and scope of responsibilities and services. We are a town of 15,000, and you're gonna have a different experience if you go and you're a departmental director of a town of 30 or 35 or 40,000. It's just different. But I've participated in a number of future managers. I've been a member of our professional association, trying to encourage folks to get into the business, and specifically to encourage women and minority candidates to come into the management side of things. I also I work with Suffolk University and a group of other managers and departments who teach a finance course, and the goal is to try to find people that are currently serving in organizations that are interested in moving up, because again, we just can't find good people. And so that's been helpful, but we really, especially during COVID, which is extremely unique circumstances, we're just not seeing the people, and the competition for good people is greater. And a lot of times in government, we don't have some of the flexibility that the private sector does to offer signing bonuses and to do things differently with salary. We're very heavily regulated, and we tend to be a unionized environment, which limits flexibility to some degree. So it's just right now we're seeing also a lot of folks a lot of people doing a lot of soul searching after this past year, and making decision that, what, I'm only going to work remotely, or I'm going to make that career change that I've been thinking about doing, or make that move to that new position or that promotion that I've been hesitant to do. So it's a lot of factors that have combined to make it an extremely, extremely difficult labor market right now, and particularly for some subsets of positions like public safety. People don't want to be a police officer at the moment for a variety of reasons. So it's hard.
Yeah. It's the same story that we've heard numerous times from the other departments is the labor pool is just so minuscule right now, and not a lot of people looking to get into working with the municipalities, and
so our bread and butter when it comes to recruitment, we've had a good run of bringing like very high quality people like Becca into the organization. And the bread and butter comes from two places. We look for rising stars or people that have capacity and potential to make that next move up, but they might not have the experience. And so we're a very stable organization that's great for somebody to take that first step in, because there's a lot of support for them. So we look for those kind of rising stars. And in other towns, maybe working somebody in a larger town, but that next step is being blocked by somebody who's hanging on, and there's no upward mobility there. And the other place is, frankly, just trying to pull people from bad organizations. You know, we have great folks that are working in a bad system. And again, what do we offer them? We offer them professionalism. We offer them stability, both financially and politically. And, in this field, depending on the town you choose, it can be the Wild West. And so, in this business, people look for stability in their communities, and they look for the culture. Is this someplace that I want to work? And so we've had a lot of success of scooping up great people that are working in subpar systems for them. And so that's been good. So, but other than that, then I get them and we teach them and we groom them, and then they get poached by larger communities more often than not, which is okay. If they come in, you want people to move on and move up, and that's part of that's part of the mentality, particularly as a manager, is you want people to grow and professionally, and you want them to have that chance to move up. You just want them to stay long enough that you get a return on your investment as well. So I think the big thing is right now we're just seeing a lot of movement across the board everywhere. So that's difficult. It's not just periodically every couple of years somebody moves on and you're swapping, you're bringing new people in the organization. There's just a lot of turnover and a lot of movement across the board. When you have a limited applicant pool, one person moves, it's a ripple effect all around. Everybody's trying to backfill and the folks shift around. So it's really not a big group. We all know each other. The game, 6 degrees of separation, right? It's like 2 degrees in our business. We all know each other or know somebody who knows the other person.
So once a job becomes open, then everybody knows, and they'll scramble to protect their people. Yeah.
It's true. I've had people try to poach our finance director. I just got the fantastic Board of Health agent that we have out of arguably a difficult organization. And then, a town nearby, bigger than us with more money, immediately tries to grab that person. And so, so it's important that you have a good organization and a good culture, and that people want to work here, because money is important, but you're all in HR and this, it's not the deciding factor. It is a factor, but it's the culture and it's the opportunity to grow and the other things that keeps people here for a certain amount of time. But we're a small town. Not too many people come and they do their entire career here. It's a smaller town. People come, they learn, and oftentimes they do move on, which is challenging.
Yeah, it's also. I've never thought about it that way, John. It's. I work professionally with a lot of small companies, and they grow and they add people, and the responsibilities within the organization grow because you're growing, you're entering new markets, adding new customers. In a municipal environment, you just don't have that. It's the town of Northborough isn't all of a sudden going to go from 15,000 residents to 30,000 residents in the next 18 months. It's just not how municipalities work.
And municipalities, like other organizations, there are some that are more like startups that are growing fast, a large school population. There are some that are mature and some that are decaying. And Northborough has been on a growth spurt, so to speak, in terms of development and some growth. But we are now really what I would consider to be a mature, plateauing community. The reality is there's no more land to develop. We're basically approaching build out. You'll see some new redevelopment, But there's, a big housing start for us might be, 2 houses going in on a piece of land. The days of like a 20 home subdivision, there isn't even land for something like that in Northborough. So most of it is people on large lots subdividing and then retiring and selling the lot, and a developer comes in and builds a house or 2 houses. But on average, you're talking about adding 8 to 10 houses a year. That's not a big growth. And commercially, and in terms of our development, after the mall went in and the other area of town has basically built out, there's a couple more parcels, but there's no significant land mass for us to develop. So we really are approaching build out as a mature community. And that brings, new challenges, because that new growth, revenue is no longer going to be coming in. And so we need to make sure that we're budgeting in a sustainable fashion.
You've mentioned culture a few times, and I know how important culture is for an organization. Can you just touch on how diversity and inclusion fits in with the culture? I know I shouldn't say that. Can you just talk about how diversity and inclusion fits in with the culture of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all as human beings want the same thing. You want to be a part of something. You want to feel like you're a part of a community, and in our case, it's the larger community, but also the organization. And in order for that to work, people need to feel like they're valued. They need to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And that's the culture that we try to encourage. We're a little bit different. Let me just kind of back up, and I'll tell a story, since most of these people have either passed away or moved away, because I've been here for 19 years. But when I started in this community, and I started as the assistant town administrator, and I lived in town, and I took this job to get home closer for my family. My daughter was just born. And when I started here, it was a bit of a culture shock to me, because the town and the schools were fighting over everything. This is when the high school project was a big issue. So the town and the schools had a toxic relationship. The police and fire didn't get along. I had departments were fighting over limited resources. The general government and the schools were fighting over resources. The finance committee and the school committee and the board of selectmen were not on the same page about anything finance related or policy related. And one of the things that when I took over, one of the first things I did was to try to address the cultural issues that we were facing. And again, my focus is always on information. You got to agree on the facts before you can have an intelligent discussion. And then process, allowing everybody to be heard and to have a process that when it comes out in the end, it might not go your way and you might not be happy with the outcome. But if you felt like you were heard and you got a fair shake, you don't go away mad or angry, and it took a couple of years to do that. But I'm very proud to say that if you bring in the superintendent and the prior superintendent and the prior superintendent to that, they will all tell you that that was probably the biggest thing that we did was making that culture of respect and inclusion. And so that in the long run builds trust in the organization, which allows people to deal with controversial or difficult issues without immediately starting to fight or be defensive. They're willing to listen, and they're willing to be swayed. And as I said, we've had 13 consecutive years where we have gone to town meeting with every board and committee, every person on every board and committee, finance-wise, and school committee, board of selectmen, appropriations, financial planning, all on the same page about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And again, we get national awards for our budget. Northborough is the community. If you serve on a financial board or committee in this state for the last 7 years, I'm the one that has trained you for the Association of Town Finance Committees. And all I do is I talk about best practices and I talk about information and process over and over and over again. If you work here, every department head has heard me a million times talk about information, process, listening. And that culture has served us really well. One of the things that is somewhat disturbing to me is, I've been here a very long time, is I'm starting to see that culture in the greater community shifting and changing now. And, it's a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of forces that are at play. And again, a lot of this is stuff that is at a different levels of government, but it constantly needs to be reinforced that we need to be respectful, that we need to listen to one another, and that everybody needs to have a seat at the table and be heard. And that has become more challenging, mostly not internal, in my opinion, to the organization, but external, the boards and the committees and some of the public groups. It's become increasingly more challenging, and it does impact our culture, and it does impact our ability to recruit and retain people if boards and committees aren't getting along, or there are things that people view as unsavory or not reflecting well on the community. So that's a challenge, and that's not unique to Northborough. I talk to my colleagues across the state and across the country, and there are a lot of factors that play into that. I'm not sure if I answered your question now that I've talked for so long.
No.
But if I didn't, please redirect, and I will specifically answer the question, Counselor.
No, thank you. Any questions?
I was thinking to go back to, you mentioned a pipeline, and we've talked about that with several people who visited us. They talked about maybe programs that used to exist to increase workforce development. And I just wanted to know a little bit more about, you talked about where you might find people, but is there a trajectory for the types of positions you would be filling in our town government? And if so, how does that get strengthened as a pipeline, or are there programs for workforce development there?
Sure, Deidre. Do you mean for recruiting people into the organization, or once they're in the organization?
Recruiting people into the organization.
To the organization, yeah. I think everybody has tried to make more of an effort, like, again, at the manager level. We've tried to make and create partnerships with universities and MPA programs to try to, we'll go and we'll speak to those programs to try to get people interested in coming to local government and serving in local government. There is an arm of our professional association that will go out and talk to groups about careers in local government. And again, we're very diverse too. So, you've got planning, versus police versus fire. It's just a very different, the planner group, people who want to be a town planner or building inspector are not the same people that are interested in being police and fire. So it really, at the department head level and the statewide association level, I think they've all recognized it and tried to put into place programs to get people to become more aware of career opportunities. But it's one thing to be aware, but then how do you assist them? And that goes back to the Suffolk University program that I'm involved in, which is, okay, so we have nobody that wants to go into municipal finance right now. You cannot find a town accountant. You cannot find a finance director. They're just not out there. And so we're trying to find people that are working as assistant treasurer collectors or town accountants, or even folks that are frankly outside and have no municipal experience at all. If they have the skill set that's transferable, they might be intimidated by coming in and working in a government setting just because it's unfamiliar to them. So we're trying to reach out through every avenue that we can to get people's interest, but then also to try to pair them up with either programs or sometimes mentoring to kind of move them along and through. And I've been the beneficiary of several amazing mentors over my career, and so we're trying to get people that are already at that level to look for the next person. I tell my department heads, it's their job in part to help groom and help us with the continuity once they decide to move on or retire. So you want to try to develop that talent. The tough thing for us, as I said, is we don't have a lot of depth to our bench. And so in most departments, I have a department head and an admin, and that's it. I can name probably 3/4 of our departments consist of I have a health agent and an admin. I have a town planner and an admin. I have a town accountant and assistant town accountant. So there's only with the police, fire, DPW, maybe finance. There's not a lot of opportunity to develop folks. So it's a challenge. In a larger organization, that's one of the primary things culturally that you want to groom people to move up into the organization when the time is right. For us, we tend to groom people up and then they have to leave for that opportunity, which is tough. So it's just all around, it's challenging. Not a lot of people coming in. When they get here, there's not a lot of upward mobility for them in most departments. So we do send them for training, and I'll tell you one of the things that I do that I think helps keep people interested is I'm a big fan of cross-functional teams. I like to try to, if you have an issue or a project that you're working on, pull people from all different departments, and it might be an area that you're not even really that familiar with. And you bring them together, and it's an ad hoc committee, and it's got a problem to solve. Well, it's like a giant team builder, and it strengthens your organization. I love those types of projects. So the things that you can do like that, and it helps people from feeling isolated. One of the biggest issues we faced in the last year, frankly, is we by policy have kept everybody apart. Now you can meet by Zoom, but I don't care what anybody says. It's not the same. It's not the same. It works for some people and some applications, but when you're trying to build culture, it's very difficult to build culture over Zoom. That's my opinion. It's before and after a meeting when people are talking. Before this meeting, people were asking me about my family. We were talking about, folks who just had new additions to their family. That's how you get to know people. That's how you build rapport, and that's how you build a connection to them, especially if they're different than you. Very hard to do that when Zoom pops on, you start a meeting, then the meeting ends. You have to go out of your way to make those opportunities. So it's been very difficult this past, year and a half to do that. And that's not just us. I mean, that's everywhere. You all may feel that in your own personal jobs, but, as somebody whose job it is in part to create the culture and to bring people together, I feel like the materials for that cake I'm trying to bake, it's just not all there. It's hard. You have to go out of your way. And frankly, it's like team building or even social things. At the end of the day, you spend 8 hours on Zoom. Do you want to get together for a virtual happy hour? I mean, we've tried. It's hard. It's just hard. That's all. And I'm hoping it will change and we'll get better. We got the Delta variant coming. Honestly, I can't even bear the thought of, going back down that path again. Because I think people are happy, I know you had the senior center director in here not that long ago. And, one of the things when we built that senior center is, it's great to be online, but there's no, my opinion, there's no substitute for physically being in the presence of other people and not just there to do business. There has to be some time for you to connect with them at a personal level. That's how you create the culture. That's how you get to know people that are different than you. If you don't take the time to ask them about their culture or their background, or you're never going to make that. It's hard to make that connection, I guess. So,
I have a question, John. And thank you. This has been very, very informative. I apologize. I had to keep getting up. I have a new puppy and he started chewing his bed. So forgive me I don't have little children. I have a little puppy. But anyway, so my question for you is, it sounds like there's not a whole lot that we can do to change the fact that we are, of course, a small community. I too have been here for 21 years. So I was here when all the high school stuff was going on, and, you know, government wasn't as peaceful as it might be today. But there's still issues today. But it sounds like what we can't change, obviously, is the size of our community. So people that come into community government are going to stay for a while, and they might get poached by another group. But what can we do to help make the administration more diverse in terms of staff, not necessarily in terms of roles? But I know Virginia has often suggested going to, I think there's like an African-American college or something. Because I think as of today, do we have an all-white staff, or do we have diversity within the town administration?
Yeah, I mean, we do have diversity.
We have
you know,
Virginia, we have.
there
Fred.
again, it's something that, you know, you need to make a conscious choice about what kind of an organization you want to be and what you want it to look like and what the feel of it. And it's again, it's what, you know, you keep asking me, like, how can the committee help me do my job better, or help us in terms of the goal of diversity and inclusion. And, you know, when it comes to recruiting, for me, this is it's just the most difficult thing for us. We have gone out specifically to recruit a female police officer. We absolutely should have a female police officer. And it's very difficult for a variety of reasons. You know, a lot of folks don't want to do the job. There's physical requirements that pose a barrier oftentimes. But if this committee has suggestions, and I'm genuinely open to this, if you have suggestions about access to or places that we can go, or things that we can do to increase the applicant pool, to increase our access to good people, then, you know, I'm all in favor of that. And you know, like I said, I'm having difficulty, frankly, finding just a qualified person of any race, nationality, or background. It's that difficult at the moment. And so anything that we can do to make our organization more attractive. I will share one story with you. When I was recruiting for the assistant town administrator position, for which Becca was ultimately hired, I had a candidate that said that she applied to our organization for one of the primary reasons was that a statement that was put out by this committee regarding the Floyd death, that the way our community approached it versus the way the organization, the community, and I'm not going to name the community that she was in, approached it. She said, your culture, what you put out there, made her want to apply here instead of where she was or another organization. So that what you put out is important too. And so that's, I think, something, the fact that this committee exists, and that we're putting that out there, that this diversity inclusion is important to us, I think that has an impact, because you're sending messages out all the time, whether or not you know it. You know, you're actively saying, yes, we want to promote diversity and inclusion, or you're silent on it, and the perception is that you're close to it, or it's not something that you value or you want. So I think that engagement and that public relations piece of it is absolutely important.
One more question, John. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So do you find that, because we've only been together during COVID, so I think hiring across the board, regardless of what industry you're in, has been an incredible challenge for everybody. Was this the case for you a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or do you find that during COVID it's been exceptionally difficult, or is it always difficult based on many things, how far away you have to live, what we can pay them, budget, that sort of thing? Is it any different right now?
I think it has been in my career. So I've been doing this for 25 years. I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, I've seen it grow increasingly more difficult. I think fewer and fewer people want to go into government. The absolute death blow was COVID. COVID just, that was it. It just, anything that was building just cracked wide open. And if you start to go back, there are a number of things that sort of impact the people's desire to do this type of work. You know, it's a public facing job. And again, I sound like an old man cranking about, you know, the next generation type stuff. But like, I remember when I went into this business, listening to my bosses complain about cable access, and now, you know, everybody knew who they were and everything's, you know, it's good, it's transparency, but a job that was really kind of behind the scenes, nobody knew who you were or what you did, was less public facing. Well, in the era of social media now, it's really gone. You all have had experience in social media, and even in this town, like, and that's something that I think has really blown up in the last 5 years, you know, or so. And it can be used for good, and it can be used for making things very difficult. And so if you're working a job where you're public facing and it becomes a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job, and a handful of people, or even one person who has the energy that wants to make your life really difficult because they disagree with you on something, I think that takes a toll. And younger generation coming up, they look around and they say, why would I subject myself to that? There's got to be an easier way to make a living. And that's a big piece of it, frankly, is that the social media has made these forward-facing jobs that much more of a fishbowl. And so you have to have a really tough skin, and you have to be really dedicated to public service, and you have to have a good northern moral compass as to why you're putting yourself and your family through that. And so that's been a big factor in the last 5 years. COVID just kind of cracked it all wide open, in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion and my perspective of what's changed, why it's gotten more difficult. Just, you know, and just some of the social unrest and issues, you know, I can see. I had 2 20-year veterans in the police department. In all my years, I've never seen, except for health reasons, I've never seen a 20-year veteran police officer just say, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore. And they're just gone. And then nobody behind them wants to come in and do the job either. So again, these are larger issues, and I understand that, but just on a day-to-day basis, you know, we need to have a certain number of people to be able to perform the police function in our community, and we can't find them. And I think the biggest mistake that I see happening out there with a lot of my colleagues is we get desperate. Like, you get desperate, you don't have a good person. And you ask any manager, what's their biggest regret? They'll say personnel hiring decision that they made. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they were under duress and you had to have somebody. You know, I have to have somebody to send out an emergency. I have to have somebody to inspect buildings. I have to have some, you know, these are positions I have one of. I can't go indefinitely. And I'm notorious in this town for bringing in interim managers and trying to patch stuff together and drag out recruitment processes until we get somebody that we're really happy to have. But it gets hard to do. It gets harder, increasingly more difficult.
It sounds very challenging.
But you bring the wrong person in to fill that body, especially in a town our size. You know, if you get 500 employees and you bring someone in to fill a body and they don't work and you let them go, or, you know, or you have to manage them and deal with them. When the smaller your organization, the more critical each of those members are. And how you talk about culture, you want to demoralize the culture, bring in a negative person that's difficult to work with in a small organization. You can't get away from them, and they will draw the positive energy right out of everybody. So because of that, you know, we really hold out. I went almost a year doing 2 jobs until I found Becca. I had 80 applicants. I interviewed so many people for that position. And until Becca surfaced, I didn't feel comfortable wanting to bring one of them into the organization. Because I'm like,
with Becca.
but I'm always thinking to myself, look, if something happens to me, that person is leading the organization. Is that who if I were under her in the other organization somewhere else, is this somebody that I would want to be in charge, that I would want to work for? And you can, the old adage, you can pay people to work, you can't pay them to care. They care because they're getting something else out of the job. And people that go into public service historically, they get into it. A lot of times they're idealists. They care. They want to make some kind of they want to be of service to the community. And the greatest thing for us is, and if I'm going to work as hard as I am, I want it to mean something. I want to be of service to the community, and it's harder to find people like that are willing to sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed to serve in that capacity. So, and even in levels that never used to see that kind of scrutiny at the department head level, department heads are finding themselves getting beat around on social media, and and now everything that we do is recorded and broadcast, which is great for transparency and it's great for government, but it does have a toll on the people, particularly if the public culture is negative or it gets combative. It takes a toll. It does. So,
do you have any openings right now?
I am looking for a senior center director right now. Liz Tradiak has decided to step back for personal reasons. I've got, what else do we have open at the moment, Becca? We've got police officer position open. We have a dispatcher position open. We have a firefighter paramedic position that's open. Yeah. And what we're seeing is, we get them in and then somebody else moves out. So, it used to be when I started here, it's the same, the police officers, they came and they stayed their full career. Now, it's some of it's a generational thing too. Like there's no sense of, I'm loyal to an organization for decades. People view work as a kind of a free agency oftentimes, because that's what they've seen, that there's no loyalty the other way either. So they need to look out for themselves and their family. And so they're willing to contract shop or move around quickly. And frankly, what I've seen in my business and at my level is I've seen a lot of people making moves up where they don't really have the experience to be successful. And it's a tough job if you're not really confident in your technical backgrounds. I spent 6 years as basically a finance director doing capital and operating budgets. And I came to Northborough, spent 6 years doing HR, economic development, insurance. Like it's been my role to do all of these things. I'm confident. If Becca steps out the door, I can do what needs to be done. And that's a confidence that I see a lot of folks, they're chasing the money and the titles, and people are hiring them because they're desperate. But it's not always good for the organization or for them. But again, it's just kind of a sign of the times.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't mean to be pessimistic. I'm about
realistic.
Government. I want to be clear. Look, I'm passionate about this work. It means something. It matters. What we do every day, it matters. It gets harder sometimes, but ultimately, I want to work and stay in an organization that values me and that appreciates what I do. When you don't feel that, you move on. And so that's, fundamentally when it comes to diversity, but inclusion and equity, that's what it's about, making sure that people are valued, they're a part of something. And if they don't feel that connection, there's no loyalty or willingness to go beyond the minimum that you're paying them to do. They'll work, but they won't care. Won't care as much.
Right. And that's even living in a community. If you don't feel like the people that are running your community care about you.
Yes.
Like being a member of this committee, I want people out there to know that we care. We care. That's our purpose. Like we care. That's why we're doing this right now. We want everyone to feel included and welcomed. And whether you work here or live here and work here, I think that's the bottom line is we want people to know that we care. Right? I mean, it sounds so simple and tacky, but it's really, that's what it comes down to. You know, I mean, even in the survey, I mean, people are like, you don't care, you know, whatever. We had positive and negative feedback, but you're being very realistic in your delivery, John, and that's what we need to hear. I mean, clearly you wouldn't have been part of this organization for 19 years if you didn't love what you do. So you're not coming across as pessimistic at all. You're just being realistic.
And look, people know when you're giving them a line. Look, I've got 20 plus years of my life in this community, and you don't work the hours that I've worked or done the things that we've done because you're just here for the paycheck. This is my adoptive home. I truly love this community, and I'm here because I very quickly felt a sense of community. I decided this is where I want to raise my children. Both my children were born and off to college in Northborough, and I that's by choice. It's by choice. So the divisiveness and some of the ugliness and some of the what people think of as nasty politics, even if you have something that's important to you, how you go about advancing your agenda matters. And it takes its toll on the community. And I'll tell you this, it takes an incredible toll on the staff. And one of my jobs is to protect the staff, to make sure that they know they're valued, and that, that we don't allow people, groups to run roughshod over them. That's become increasingly more challenging over the last several years. It just, very honestly, it's probably the most difficult aspect of my job at the moment. The town's finances are in better shape than they've ever been in. Building projects, relationships between departments and the school department of town. That's all great. The challenge right now is some of the public. So, and we have a responsibility to try to find solutions to that as well. So
that's challenging. It's very challenging. And so
we're coming out. We're coming out of an era of extremisms, and people thinking the only way to be heard is to scream louder than the other group and to shout them down, and that's unfortunate. It's one of the things I've loved about this town is that has never been going back. It just isn't how we operate. But there's, and again, it's not just Northborough. This is what I'm hearing from my colleagues across the state. And so as a committee and as individuals need to be clear about what you want your community to look and sound and feel like.
Yeah. So. Thank you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I genuinely do. We got a lot of great staff. We got a lot of great volunteers in this town. So.
I want to just point one thing out, John. I think the anecdote that you gave us about the woman who applied for my job because she heard about the statement from the committee, I think that's important for the committee to zone in on, because I think we've talked a lot about hiring, recruitment, and we've talked about it like on a national scale, that there are issues that, as hard as we may try, the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Group, like we can't change what's happening on a national scale, but what we can do is change what people see and hear when they come into town. So the things we've talked about, raising the pride flag, having like celebrations that celebrate multiple cultures during events. I think those are the things that we should really focus on, because as John's pointed out, they do obviously have real impact. So I just think it was a great anecdote to share, and I think it's a good tidbit for a group to take away.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Becca.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's an important point. I agree with you, Becca. That's why I asked about the culture, John, because I do think that in a way this committee can be part of establishing and expanding on that the culture that's already been established in a positive way. Yeah.
The fact that the committee exists, that you make statements that, and events, and what you put out publicly, it does matter. It absolutely does matter. And what surprises me is that who's watching? And when it comes back to you, like in that interview, of all the things, I'd like to think this applicant was here because she heard about what a phenomenal finance manager I am, and she's going to come and learn all this great technical stuff. What attracted her was that stuff had to be there, but she was looking for the fit. She was looking for the cultural fit, and just the statement that was put out was something that said, that's someplace that I would rather work there than where I am now, just based on that alone. So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's good to hear. Any other questions?
I'm happy to answer any questions you guys can come up with about anything at all. So
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
well,
I made that statement, and then I went with and I met with, well, I shouldn't. So I've met with any group that will want to meet with me. And it's interesting is that when you believe in what you're doing and you believe in your organization, it's amazing who you can win over on extremes sometimes. It really is amazing. And I sell this town every day, and I sell it because I believe in it. And if you'd know if I was being disingenuous about my feelings about this community, and I sure wouldn't be here after 19 years. Everybody has opportunities to move on. I talk about moving on to I planned to be here for 6 years when I came here. That was my plan. Just let my daughter get a little bit older, and then I was going to a bigger community. I never wanted to work in a town this small. This is, in fact, is the smallest town I've ever worked in. 20 years later, I'm still here. There's a stickiness to this community. There is. Offline, I'll just say, if anybody has anything that you'd like to talk to me about, or you have something that you would like me to know, by all means. And that's for anybody that may be watching this as well. I'm happy to speak with. I'm happy to speak with anybody. We're all trying to get to the same place, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that, it's if there's anything that comes up that we as a committee can be helpful and a resource for you, please don't hesitate to reach out either individually or as a committee. And, obviously, Becca's part of the committee too, so she's pretty in tune with what's going on. So that's always been an extremely important part of the committee. So if there's no other questions, just thanks, John.
It's really truly my pleasure to be here. And I just, like I say, when I encounter volunteers doing sometimes a thankless job, just appreciate it. Like my standard pitch when I meet with Cub Scouts, we all talk about, like, we think of the big moments, like you go to town meeting, you vote for or against something, or you vote for a big school project. And I always try to tell them, everything that you do on the small scale on a daily basis is what determines what your community looks like. And a big piece of that is volunteering to make your community look and feel like the place that you want to live and you want your family to be raised. And I'd love to have my kids come back and be here, Hope they have that feel. I hope your families have that feel. And if they don't, we got work to do.
Yep. I agree with that.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your volunteerism. And I hope this isn't, have me back. Like, I did, a lot of times these things are like a one-off, you want to have me back. If I'm not doing something I thought I told you I would do or something, call me back and hold me accountable. It's all good. Like it shouldn't just be a one-off, I guess. So what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. If we can extend our stay a little bit after December, then
I don't know about you, but these folks seem nice, Tim. I had enough of you already. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
That's a big club, John. That's you might need to wait in line on that one for a little while.
All right.
Seriously, John, thank you. I know you've got a lot going on, so it's I appreciate you coming in and taking the time to talk with us. And again, if there's anything that we can do as a committee, please don't hesitate to to reach out and let us know.
I will. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Guys have a great evening, and I hope we'll do this again soon. Have me back. When you get back and you want to talk kind of about where you're at and what you're thinking about doing, and you want to bounce something off, I'd love to come back. Okay.
Will do. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so it's the same. It's a recurring theme, I think, that we're hearing from everybody is their recruiting is tough. But Becca, I thought that was a great point. You know, it's that story. I didn't know that. I didn't know that had happened. About the statement going out, and I think that reinforces some of the things that we've talked about in how we want to impact the community as a committee, that just by simply doing stuff that's easy, that's inclusive, that's not expensive, or doesn't require an enormous amount of time by town staff. Real easy stuff that I think, I think we all agree and have discussed it. It will go a really long way. And it's good to hear that it actually has.
Right. That was very informative. Thank you for having him. That was really great.
Yeah. Yeah, he's always the conversations I've always had with John, he doesn't sugarcoat. You know, he talks, and when he that's why I was joking before about his kids, and the process got he wasn't the process got skewed because both of his kids were leaving at the same time. That's why I said to him, I can't believe you were surprised by the process, because he is so process and information driven, and it's
It was nice to see the human side of him. I like that. I liked seeing getting a little emotional, and he's a good man.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's, it's, I've been going back and forth on that with the role of this committee, and because I think that the impact that we have on each other just as people has kind of gotten lost. And I think, to John's point, there's countless different reasons for it, but just even when I've talked to people in town over the last 18 months, the tone has changed. And, I can see it, and I think people lose sight of the fact that they're not talking to a screen, that there's an actual human being on the other side of the screen, and they have a family, and, we're all after the same thing. It doesn't have to be a win-lose battle. It can be, there's a win-win solution to just about anything. So but without talking and communicating and having a level of empathy and
Respect.
But that's all part of at least when I think of especially equity and equality, that's just to me, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Good point.
So, anybody have anything else they wanted to discuss tonight?
Good.
Not on my end, Tim.
Okay. I wanted to thank everybody for their support at the selectmen's meeting. Just thanks everybody for if you were able to attend, and then just the encouraging words. I think Becca knows better than I do. The feedback that we got from the board was positive. So,
Very positive.
yeah. Did you want to add anything on that, Becca?
No, just that I did hear from multiple board members after the fact that they were very impressed with the work that we've done thus far and are looking forward to hearing us again come back. So I think it's definitely, everybody on the committee should give themselves a pat on the back because we've had a lot of meetings and I it's been a lot, but I do think that we're definitely well on the way to accomplishing something good. So that's what matters.
Yeah. And then, not for discussion tonight, but for discussion at our next meeting. I had a conversation with Michelle Gillespie about Apple Fest. So we should have a discussion at our next meeting if there's something that we want to do with Apple Fest. Mary, I got your email about the concert on Sunday. I think it's a great idea. I just can't do it. And it's not, there's a couple more concerts this year, isn't there? So
Yeah.
maybe not this one. Maybe we can do it at a future concert. Cause I think that's a great idea. If they'll have us, I think that's great.
So Shika and Deirdre, so.
I was gonna say, did I miss an email? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I sent it to
sorry.
Becca, Miriam and Tim. So Susie Sislika had called me yesterday and she had just gotten off the phone with somebody that is with a particular tribe and is going to set up a table at the concert on Sunday. The concert's over at 135. And thought it would be a great idea, which it would be a great idea for us to set up a table when they're also there. I can't do Sunday. The concerts are from 5 to 7. I don't know if anyone else is interested or available, but I know it's really short notice. I can't be there, but maybe we can plan. I'm going to be away next weekend, but maybe the following weekend. I don't have the schedule, but I can take a look and follow up with you guys. See if we might be able to. So that's what it was. And she didn't know which tribe.
Okay.
What would be at the table, do you think, or just basically there for people if they have questions about our charge, or what did you have in mind?
I don't really have anything in mind. I mean, she said, just set up a table and, share with people, what we do, why we're here, what our mission is. We don't have anything in writing that we could hand out. Maybe that's something to think about. Just being present, I think, and it would have been nice if we had a little more heads up to coordinate something where this tribe is going to be there. I think that's such a perfect opportunity to kind of get to know them and introduce ourselves. Are you available on Sunday, Deirdre?
I'm not this Sunday, but I'm intrigued by the idea. I think it's good to, expand our reach by meeting people and having people know us. I think as things like this come up, it does make us think a little bit more broadly. So, maybe there needs to be a brochure, diversity in Northborough type of thing.
Right. Or something. Yeah.
Right. So it's good to be thinking about that because we've been thinking about other types of advertising, not advertising, more public relations type of things. So this is just one of them. And I would, before we did something like that, I'd want to make sure all of us were on the same page with the talking points and just, the purpose.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe we plan to have that ready for Apple Fest.
Yeah.
When
That
is
makes sense.
When is it? Late September?
September 17th, I think.
Yeah.
First day, or the 16th might be the first day. So it's coming up.
Yeah.
We should have
Probably
a
like
take.
6 weeks.
Yeah, maybe we can all take shifts or something.
Yeah, and we can have, I mean, that's what people do at Apple Fest, right? They get stuff from the different tables, so we can maybe have like a little one pager. I don't know if it would summarize some of the things that have happened or just, state our mission, but it'd be great if we could talk about that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a Facebook page by then and put that on there.
That'd be great.
I was gonna bring that up to add to our next agenda. I do think that the feedback from the board was pretty positive with respect to moving forward with a Facebook account. So I think that we should plan to do that. So I'd love for us to have a more in-depth conversation at the next meeting. So I don't want to put you on the spot, Shika, but I'm hoping you'll be here.
Yes, I plan to be back on a regular schedule of joining. So
Awesome.
yes.
Awesome, yeah, because I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be a good resource for us.
Right.
All right, sounds good.
We probably won't be doing something for this Sunday. We won't be doing something for this Sunday, but we'll try to do one of the other concerts. Leave it at that.
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Rebecca. There was just somebody popping up on the Golden Gate
was
Bridge.
Like a little puppet.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's a little bit too big for the Golden Gate, but moved by Becca, second by Deidre. Roll call vote. Mary Leach,
Aye.
Deidre Riding,
Aye.
Shika Holland,
Aye.
Becca Meekins,
Aye.
and I, Tim Kalen, vote aye.